Welcome back to another episode of Fully Stoked Podcast. I am your host, Sarah Stokes, and I'm so glad that you are here. So as an introduction, if you've never seen this show before, by day I am a senior mortgage loan advisor with Coast to Coast Mortgage and Sarah Stokes Home Loans. But what I really like to do is connect people, especially women, entrepreneurs in business, and people with amazing and fantastic stories like my next guest, Cosette Leary. She is the founder of Reclaim Your Stories, LLC, and author of From Welfare to White House, How I Reclaimed Myself, and You Can Too. She is a wonderful resource for everyone, and I guarantee you're going to learn something today. Welcome, Cosette. We're so glad to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Hello, Sarah, and thank you for such a magnificent introduction. And I am delighted to be here. I am ready, set, go. This is very exciting.
Yes, so Cosette has a very unique story and something that all of us can learn from. So I just cannot wait to just dive right in and get started, Cosette. So take us back to your early life, growing up in poverty and foster care, group homes, and becoming a mother at 14. And tell us a little bit about how survival looked at that stage of your life.
Thank you for an excellent kickoff with that, Sarah. Oh, we're going to go back, way back into time. So back then, 1985 is when I actually became a ward of the court. I was 12 years old and I was rescued by the police department. And the night that I got rescued, I do want to talk about that. I had ran away from home. It was the third time. I had run away 2 times before them. And back in 1985, Sarah, child abuse was not on the forefront. I remember being a little girl, late night sneaking, watching TV down real low where nobody could hear it. And there was a movie with an actress named Farrah Fawcett in it. I didn't know much about Farrah Fawcett, but the movie was called The Burning Bed. And I never, ever forgot the title. I was like 9 years old and I'm 53 now. And I still remember the title. And I remember the title so much because this woman was being physically abused horribly. And while I was not a woman, what I was seeing on the screen, it mirrored what I was going through as a child, those type of beatings, being thrown across rooms and punched and kicked and all of that. And so that was helping domestic violence start to kind of get a voice, that movie. But child abuse didn't really have a voice in 1985. So I ran away twice. The reason why I brought all that up is because the first 2 times that I ran away, the police department and the fire department called my biological mom each time. They didn't understand that was not the thing to do. You're really not helping me. But no one knew how to really work with children like that in that capacity. So by the time I turned 12, I ran away for the third time. A few years had passed because, like I said, this was like when I was 9. Now I'm 12. And a very interesting thing to me about that, looking back, I made sure I got a beating because one of the things that the police department and the fire department had explained to me, in their mind, my bruises were old. It didn't show that this was currently happening. Go to show you how much they didn't know back then. So I deliberately didn't take out the trash or wash the dishes, which was part of my many, 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 many chores. And my mother, I knew she was going to get in a rage, and she did. And I knew I was going to get the beating that I would need to have fresh bruises and cuts to show them. So that happened. I climbed out the window in the middle of the night that night and ran for dear life. Now, one point I would like to mention still. At 12 years old, when I jumped over the fence, I had a dog, a John Master pit bull named Lewis. And I knew when I was climbing out my bedroom window that I better hustle my patootie like quick because he's not going to know that it's me right off the bat climbing out the window, and he's going to be in force protective mode. And I could hear his feet hitting the ground, running on the grass. And I hopped over that fence so fast. And by the time I got over the fence, he hit up the fence. And I said, Louis, because number one, I was afraid he's going to wake my mom and her husband up. And number two, I wanted him to calm down and see it was me. And I said, Louis, it's me. And he looked. I remember, I can see it all in my mind right now. He looked, and it dawned on me this was going to be the last time I was going to see Louis. And he was my playmate. And I still can feel that in my heart that in order to save myself, I knew I was going to have to give him up. And he was my only playmate. And I told him, I said, it's me. I said, I love you, but I have to go. And he licked my hand through the fence. Sorry, I have to keep myself from. I'm 53. And when I remember Louis, it's still, And I
Yeah.
turned and I ran like crazy. It was like 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. So now to kind of condense this, I got to American Legion High School and I fell out on the front yard trying to breathe. My lungs were burning, they were cold. And it dawned on me, oh my goodness, if they're not looking for me already, I can't be on the front of this yard. So I ran to the back of the school campus. It was a high school. And fell out back there. And then I got up and started trying to get my wits about me. And I was looking around and I was trying to figure out what house to go knock on to get some help. So I knocked on this lady's house. She finally came to the door and said, who is it? And I said, my name is Cosette. She said, what do you want? And I said, can you open the door? I was a child. I didn't know people would not, I asked an innocent question. She said, I don't open my door to people this time of night. What do you want? And I said, I'm trying to get help for abused children. She said, dial 911. I said, okay, thank you. And I went to walk off her porch. She said, wait a minute, what did you say? And I said, I'm needing help for abused children. And she cracked the door open and she saw the condition I was in. And she said, oh my God. And she took that chain link off her door. And that was the beginning of my escape. I got put in a receiving home after being in the hospital. And then I moved to the orphanage. And I lived at the orphanage, I want to say a good year. And so I was almost 14 when I moved to a group home. And at 14, I got pregnant with my first daughter. And that was challenging because she was not a ward of the court. So therefore, there was no one to pay, no county dollars to pay room and board for her when she got born. And me and her father didn't make it. So I was ushered into what I call an extension of generational poverty. My mom was impoverished. Now I'm becoming a mother that's impoverished, and my child automatically is ushered into poverty. So I wanted to be an adult immediately because I had a beautiful child growing inside my body. But that was a conflict with the county. I was a minor. They reminded me of that many, many, many times. And they tried to force me to terminate. And I remember standing in front of a judge early, within my first trimester. And I told him, I said, you're asking me to kill the only family I have. The only family I have is growing in my stomach. And you're asking me to terminate, to get rid of my baby. I said, I can't do that. I don't have any other family. This is my only family. I'm going to keep my family. And again, he reminded me, young lady, do you realize you're a minor and blah, blah, blah. I said, I do. He said, well, how are you going to take care of this child? I said, I don't know. I'm going to find a way. That's when I first start getting a welfare check. And to me at the time, because I got $400 or so, 400 some odd dollars or so per month. And that seemed like a lot of money every month coming in the mailbox for me. Yeah. Well, I was, 14, didn't know about life. So sure, that seemed like a lot of money. But when baby came, it wasn't a lot of money. So that's what that was like. I had to learn how to do a lot of critical survival thinking very, very early. Because now I have this little person who's depending on me, and I'm still depending on me, trying to figure out who I am in the process because now I'm 15 with a little baby and I'm still a kid.
So young to have so much on your plate. That's just so much. Wow. Wowzers. Um, so what did it take for you to mentally and emotionally grow up? Like, how did you do it?
I'm going to say it was the fact that even though I was very young, I was very bright and intelligent, and I was a logical thinker. And I realized that now that I was a mother, I'm responsible for someone else besides myself. And I got to do something. And of course, I had that adolescent desire for independence to go with it. We want to grow up so fast when we're teenagers. We don't want to listen to nobody. We want to make our own decisions, all of those kind of things. But besides that, I wanted to find what I considered my ideal life. I wanted to grow up and be self sufficient, even though I really didn't know how to be self sufficient because I didn't know about life. I didn't know about rent. I didn't know about mortgages. I didn't know about bank accounts that much, how to work with your checking, nothing. Back then, oh my goodness, don't even get me on the fact that I thought it's okay to write a check when you don't got the money in the bank. I'm a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. But what really got me to want to get out of all of that was a rage of survival. And I call it a rage of survival because I was angry at the world. I was angry at my foster families. I was angry at my social workers. I was angry at my daughter's father for leaving and walking out. I was angry and I wanted to show everybody that I didn't need them. I could do it on my own. I'm strong enough for this. So it was that rage
Right.
survival that got me through that. I don't recommend it, but that's how I was going off of rage at the time. I'm going to show everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a motivator. I could see how that would be, you had to dig deep and find something. And it is a motivator.
It is.
Rage. I love that. It's almost like a violence, but in a good way. It created a drive in you, such a strong drive. And
Mhm.
look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
For those viewing, Cosette, she's written the book called From Welfare to the White House, How I Reclaimed Myself and You Can Too. Well, that tells you that she was in the White House. So there's some good things to come in this story. I'm glad we laid the groundwork where your life started and all the things but it is a tremendous beginning. Like I just couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being in your shoes. So you've overcome a lot just so far. Can you tell me where the idea of reclaim your stories, where that came from?
Yeah. Well, that, believe it or not, it came from I'm holding up my book, where it says in the title of my book, I'm just showing it a little bit. You probably can't, I don't know if you guys can see the word, but the part that says how I reclaimed myself and how you can too. Reclaimed. I was spending some time trying to figure out how I wanted to come up with the name for my women's empowerment coaching practice. And I was brainstorming with a girlfriend of mine, and we were looking at my book. And she said, "Well, look at the word reclaim in there. You got reclaimed." She said, "Can we work something off of that?" And my mind got to thinking, and I started thinking about where I am now in life, my beautiful maturity age, and what stories did I put on the back burner? What adventures, what dreams did I put on the back burner because of responsibilities, labels, things I thought I needed to do, raising children, all kind of things. And it was like, I want to go back and reclaim those stories of my life that I set on the back burner. And how many other women have great adventures, incredible goals that they put on the shelf? And they were like, one day I'll get back to that. I want to help women reclaim their stories. I want to reclaim mine. And therefore, Reclaim Your Stories, LLC, was then born.
Why is it so important that they acknowledge those crack spots?
Thank you so much, Sarah. Yes, for asking that question. That too, I pulled from my heart of my life. a lot of times when I would feel that I was lacking in something or fighting depression about something or just feeling less than and not as accomplished as I would want to be. Why am I not further in life? I thought by the time I got here, I would be like this. And
Mm.
those were my crack spots. But what I didn't realize for a long time is that I wasn't the only one with crack spots. And by having them and acknowledging them and embracing them, I was able to relate to a lot of other people. And then I had a strength that it offered me because I was able to speak my truth. I was able to say, hey, I might look like good and stuff, but it's not always so good. It's not always so great. I'm not so astute at all these different things, or these are the kind of feelings I have. And it would open up a freedom and a safe space with other women to have these real conversations where we could take off the mask, our innovative mask. We know what we're doing. And I don't want to get it wrong. I know how to do a lot of things and I'm great at a lot of things. But a lot of times in our society, we are so encouraged, Sarah, to only show our greatness. So that compounds the fact that, oh my goodness, I don't want to show my cracks. I don't want to show my vulnerability,
Right.
my weaknesses, what I don't really feel about myself. But when we do, we not only give ourselves permission for self expression, we open the door for someone else to talk about what they've been holding on to deep inside.
It's those crack spots are where the light gets in rather
Hmm.
than places of shame, right? So
Yeah,
instead of just being ashamed, allow the light to shine on it and it can help others.
it
It can really
can.
help others.
It can cause a really wonderful ripple effect. I will share that I've talked to a lot of women in my lifetime from that frame, from that lens of, hey, these are my crack spots, but they make me human. They make me
Mhm.
uniquely me. My crack is my kind of cracks that I have. Yours is your kind of that you have. And what I have found was I was able to build trusting relationships that have lasted years, some of them a couple of decades with women, because they were like, whoa, Coco, if you are so comfortable talking to me about stuff, I feel like I kind of owe you to talk to you about some of my stuff. Focus on the cracks, but I acknowledge them because of the
Right.
relatability it gives us to other people. But our conversations with did go on to like things that we knew we were great at, and things that we hope to become even greater at. So the cracks allow for honesty, open honesty. And like I said, people wear so many masks because they want to show up to where they look savvy enough, to where people want to see them walk in the room. And that's great. We need that too. But we need to work on being the whole person. And sometimes we need
Yeah.
permission for that. I did.
Yes. And you say permission to rewrite the chapters, right? We all have a true story, but we have permission to rewrite those chapters. And I guess that's what you do with your women's coaching business is you help women rewrite chapters.
Yes, emotional ones, really, but they do get a journal from me to write in. And the journal is framed in certain segments so that they can concentrate on an area
Okay.
that they want to. But yes, having them be able to rewrite their chapters. And I'm a huge champion of luxury. Now, that might sound kind of odd, like, coming from poverty and welfare. But what that did was oh my goodness, I would go in and I was the ultimate queen of window shopping. Yes, darling. I'd window shop the dickens out of something. Couldn't buy it, but I'd
Yes.
window shop it. Okay. So,
You've learned everything about it. You've learned everything. Yes. Yes. Me too. I love that.
yeah, I'd go in the store sometimes, I'd shop out on the window outside looking at. I'd go in the store and I'd walk around. I knew I couldn't afford anything in there, but I'd walk around and I'd pay attention to the women that could afford the stuff that was shopping. I pay attention to what they were wearing. I pay attention to the tone of their voice when they talk, their cadence. I pay attention to their shoes. Sometimes I get up close enough to
Mhm.
somebody and I can smell what kind of perfume scent they had on. And it kind of let me know what the other side lived like in a way. And with my window shopping, I would daydream, oh, if I could have this, if I could have that. And I think part of that, come to think about, because I'm remembering things while I'm talking to you. When I was in the receiving home at 12 years old, they had a little store on the property. And if we always did our chores and did stuff, we had a point system. And you get a certain amount of points and you could go shop at the store. Let me tell you, Sarah, they had a bottle of Chanel, Coco Chanel perfume. Well, first of all, Coco, that was my nickname. So that's got to be
That's
my
my
perfume.
name. That's
It smelled so good. But it was 500. And I told the lady in the store, I said, I want that perfume. And she said, well, how many points you got? And each time I show her how many points I got, she was so sweet. You know what she did? I didn't even know it till I finally had enough points to buy the perfume. She took that perfume and put it in the back room and saved it for me till I had enough points. And when I got up to 500 points and I got to the little store on the property and I didn't see the bottle,
when I,
somebody bought it.
your heart was,
And she
yeah.
said, no. She said, let me see how many points you got now. She said, you have 500. I said, yes, but it's gone. She said, no, it's not. She goes, just a minute. I'll be right back. She walked back in the back of the store. She goes, I put it up for you because I knew you were going to earn enough points for it. And I think that bottle of Coco Chanel was my first introduction, to luxury. I'm thinking about it now because I loved that perfume and I knew it was expensive. So I
Mhm.
would go window shopping and I developed a huge love for luxury. I call it semi luxury now because within our world, so many things have changed since I was 12 to now. And everyone, or at least a lot of people, we're trying to live within our means. But I feel like self love for me was to be able to have some really nice things that I thought the beautiful people had. And the beautiful people I talk about in my book, they were the non impoverished people. They had these
Mm.
things. And so I wanted some of those things and developed a real sense for an appreciation of semi luxury things. So within my women's empowerment coaching, semi luxury comes into play. It's built in there. It's absolute. And something that I've learned about a lot of women is that while we carry so many titles and hats, often a nurturer and huge giver are the two biggest ones I can think about. A lot of times we don't dote on ourselves. So I made
That's
sure,
right.
yes. So I made sure within the coaching session and package, luxury was built in there because a lot of times women won't go and give it to themselves.
So one of the takeaways when I was researching is that self-love is not indulgence, it's responsibility. And so I think you're saying you help women, help teach them how to, self-love, to love themselves. You with your coaching, right? You build it in there, in other words. It is important. My husband grew up, they didn't have much. There was 8 kids, and I see it. I see it. He enjoys the finer things, but he works really hard for those
Mhm.
finer things. And if that is, well, I don't know if it's an indulgence, but it is a responsibility. I mean, he needs to be able to have something nice every once in a while. It's important. It is absolutely important. I agree with you. You had
Yeah.
talked about self-worth, almost like a 5-year fiscal plan. What does
Yes.
that mean? Can you explain that?
Yes, I can. Self worth being looked at as a 5-year fiscal plan. Increments. Each year is an increment within the 5 years. And looking at who you see yourself as in the first year is a huge focus. And who you want to continue to grow into for the whole 5 years is the next huge focus. And again, my stuff is centered on self-love. So how do you see yourself now? But how does your heart see yourself, who you want to be? And in that 5-year fiscal plan, you're going to go ahead and stretch that plan out. You're going to have action steps. You're going to have honesty with yourself. You're going to plan, to have resources, create resources if you need to, and be able to go ahead and give yourself elements of when you go on retreats for yourself. And in that 5 years, those retreats can consist of whatever you want them to, but maybe someone wants to dive into more creativity. Maybe they want to take courses in creativity. Maybe they want to dive into, jazz and modern dance, anything they want to do. And maybe they want to start to foster authentic relationships with other people. Maybe they want to grow into a freedom of meditation. Maybe they want to see themselves at the end of the 5th year that they're taking a trip to the Himalayas if they can. Or maybe they want to have staycations. I think that's what they call them, staycations. And so maybe
Yeah.
they want to get to know their city better. Maybe they've been so busy living this thing called life and let life be lifing that they haven't even really went out and explored where they live. I am guilty of that. I will tell you, I have started putting together different restaurants and museums and things in my own city that I want to go date
Mm-hmm.
myself at, you know, because I don't know my
Mm-hmm.
home city. So maybe they want to do things like that. But in that 5-year fiscal plan, maybe they also want to get their finances in order. Maybe they want to go for a different career, so give themselves 5 years to work on that. And at the end of those 5 years, go and see how much their life and themselves have really changed. And when they look in the mirror, do they see the woman or person that they really want to be materialized? You know?
Is that sort of like, doting on yourself? You spend the time and plan it out. Is that what you mean when you talk about doting on yourself, spending time,
Hmm.
getting those things in order? And I love the staycation idea. Just, you're right. I don't know enough about where I live. I need to put that on my 5-year plan and be intentional about it. I owe that to myself too. That's really good. Good advice. Yeah. Why do you think women struggle so much with celebrating themselves?
Because tradition is still well and alive when it comes to the roles of women. And a lot of times, a lot of us grew up with the idea of that we need to nurture a family, we need to put others first, giving is better than receiving, if you will. So I think a lot of times as women, the burden of a lot of the responsibilities that we do walk into allows for us to not be able to find the justification, to do a lot of self-love. We got responsibilities. I remember when I was raising my children, and fortunately, I know this might sound kind of funny, I did get to become a soccer mom. I was proud of that.
That's
And I had
awesome.
the little Capri Sun packages and the sliced oranges and the crackers and stuff. That was a goal of mine. I wanted to be like middle class people so much. And I became a soccer mom, and I had that chance. Again, speaking to the title of mom, we spend so much time nurturing other people. And I want to add that in our world today, we have a lot of people, and I think maybe always, a lot of women start having to take care of their parents. I don't want to leave that out.
Mm.
The roles get reversed. And now we're taking care of mom and dad. That's on top of whatever other things we have in our life. And so before
Mm-hmm.
we venture out to do something that we might would like to do for self, we immediately start thinking, oh, but if I do that, I'm not going to have time to do this for, mom and dad or the kids or, husband or
Mm-hmm.
community commitments. We have all kind of reasons of what we're doing and giving out. And those are great things to do. you know, but it also, more often than not, puts us once again on the back burner, on the shelf. I'll get to me, maybe when the time is right, when I have less on my plate. But the thing about that, Sarah, that I had to learn, I'm the only me I got. I'm the only me I got.
Right.
So whether or not I take the time to sprinkle some joy for the only me that I have is up to me. But I once heard it said and never forgot, this life is not a practice run. We don't get to be 89, 92 and say, now I know, I understand. I want to go back and do it over now. No.
Get the one time.
You get the one time. You get the one and only you, and you get the one time.
Yeah. That's
And we
very
believe
inspiring. You say, what is it that you often say? We deserve to get up, get out, and get something. Talk to us
get
a little bit about that. Okay. Awesome.
I
That's
mean,
awesome.
I did. It's sitting in the drawer, in the drawers, but one day, hopefully sooner than later, I want to go out to St. Thomas. And I bought clothing for the daytime, the middle afternoon, and the nighttime. That's what it is. Yeah, gotta go out there and wind your waist, girl. Yes, so I have my tropical clothing for my vacation. I told myself I gotta get up, get out, and get something. I gotta get some of the things I want because it's not a practice run. And it doesn't mean you don't love the people that are in your life. You still love them.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
Give yourself something. And that's why I'm so
I
awesome for
love that.
doing
That's
this
good
vacation.
advice. Such good advice. Yeah. So you've spoken in rooms full of the top 1% earners while actively
Yeah.
climbing out of poverty at the same time.
Yeah.
What did that feel like, and what did that teach you?
Oh my goodness. Whew, loaded question. That's good. So, first of all, I spent time in Temecula, California, Laguna, San Diego, Mission Bay, being in ballrooms and having conversations with a lot of top one percenters.
Well, tell us how you got there, because I didn't tell
Yeah.
the viewers what you've done, and then how you got to the White House too. So maybe just tell a little background on that.
Okay. So, how I got to be in these ballrooms and on these stages with these individuals started when I was in poverty and I had found a magazine titled Working Mother Magazine. And I read it. It had three women on the cover. It says three women who really know how to raise a ruckus. And I, at the time, felt like I could raise some holy cow manure. Let me tell you, I'm so sick of this life. I'm so sick of not being able to get things for my kids. I'm so sick of looking at them in the face and giving them the same repeated answer of mama will try and not knowing if my try is going to be good enough. So when I read the title, Three Women Who Really Know How to Raise a Ruckus, I was right there. And I read all three articles of the different women, but one woman stood out to me in that magazine. And her name was Dina Dwyer Owens, and she owned the Dwyer Group in Waco, Texas. And the article was talking about how her and her family, they were having dinner at an IHOP, and she was paying attention to the waitress rushing from table to table to table to table, trying to get all of those tips. She said when she got home, she was putting on her pajamas and she couldn't get the waitress out her mind. And she said she thought to herself, if it's that hard for a working woman, what it must be like for a woman on welfare. Hot dog. What? Let me tell you, Sarah. I had never seen anyone reference a woman, can't even talk, it's so emotional, a woman on welfare in any form of written language, medium,
Mhm.
anything. And I took that magazine home and I dialed 411, which was our information number, and I asked for the physical address and phone number of that company. And I wrote Dina a letter. I had a feeling that she probably would never get my letter because, first of all, she owned a multi-million-dollar business, a franchise business. She had a bunch of franchise companies, and million was the biggest number I could think of back then. So I have no idea. It might have been more, worth more than that, but million was always the big number. And I wrote her a letter. I don't remember the whole letter, but I never forgot the first paragraph because I was so fervently, I mean, everything, I felt like my bones were going to come out of my skin, like my skeleton. I was just like I was going to jump out of my body with so much of God, please let her see me in these words. And the first paragraph says, I know it must be strange receiving a letter from someone so far away, because I lived in the Northwest and she lived in Texas. I said, and I know we have never exchanged Christmas recipes nor had a cup of coffee together, but we do have something in common. You care about women on welfare, and I'm a woman on welfare. Will you please help me? And I remember when I got to the will you please help me, I was crying so hard I couldn't even, the blur of the tears, I couldn't see the paper, I couldn't see nothing. And I got to the post office and mailed it off. And I said, God, if you could put this in her hands, please, because I'm tired. I'm really tired.
Mm-hmm.
About 2 weeks later, I came home and the light was blinking on my answering machine, but I didn't bother to, push it because it usually was just the utility company or somebody telling me, I'm behind on my bill and stuff like that. I'm tired. I got home. I got kids to feed, homework to do with them and bathe them and get them in bed. So I waited till all of my motherly chores were done and I pushed the button on the machine, but it wasn't a utility company. It was her executive secretary telling me that she had got my letter and she wants to talk to me. So that was the beginning because she is the one that introduced me to the people in the ballroom. She endorsed me. And that's how I got into Temecula, California, Mission Bay, San Diego, Laguna, all of these places. I got to have conversations with Frank Shekowich, and I always try to pronounce his last name. And Frank was very kind to me. He was one of the co-founders of Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's passed away now. We lost Frank, and it's hard for me sometimes to talk because I don't want, I know I'm supposed to be professional right now and don't be crying, but when we go down my memory lane, there's so
Yeah.
many things that evoke emotion, but I would often be the only one in the ballroom or on the stage talking about blending the, social classes, and that even though poverty can be a very exhausting grip around your emotional neck, that people from my background can get out of that and build hopes and dreams. And Frank and I went in one ballroom. We were talking, and I said to him, I said, I'm the only one talking this kind of stuff. Everybody's in here talking oil, they're talking software, they're talking, and I said, I don't know if I'm being heard. And he said to me, he said, you have a very noble cause. He said, do you have a business plan? I said, no. And he said, come on, walk with me. I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine that has an excellent business plan. And they gave the business plan to me right then and there. And I have it in my bedroom. So that's how I got into these
Awesome.
ballrooms. And that's how I got into motivational transformational speaking, was because Dina read my letter from my hands to God's presence to her hands. And I got to see that there's a possibility. But I will acknowledge that I did have the courage to write her. And I would like to encourage anyone that may be listening and watching right now. It may be something that you feel is out of your wildest dreams. Like, oh, that'll never happen for me. I wish it could. Don't be so sure. Understand your worth, embracing the chance to go after it. Get up, get out, and get something. And I learned
Yeah.
in life that every no is not necessarily something that's a catastrophe. I believe
Right.
that God allows for no's out of protection and for us being able to pivot. So even if you do
Right.
something and you don't get the response you hope, Keep going. Build on the fact that you had the courage to try in the first place, and don't let that courage stop. Keep that momentum. Keep going. Please. I know I probably sound like I'm begging people, but it's like, don't give up on the only you that you have. And so that's how I got in ballroom. And it was through the ballroom.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Sarah.
was just going to say, I hear the word courage. I remember thinking when you were talking about how you ran away when you were
Yeah.
12, and I
Yeah.
thought the courage it took. You said you needed to make sure that you got another beating so that
Yeah.
the social workers would see it and that they wouldn't send you back. So that's courageous. Jumping out of a window, that's courageous. And then running as hard as you could, knocking on a door, all of those things are incredibly courageous. And then standing in a room with the top 1% earners, that's courageous. And then, champion your cause, that's courageous. And, just continuing to do all the things that you've done, it does take courage, but it also just, you are courageous, but you encourage with your coaching business is you encourage others to be courageous. So that seems like a really common thing with you. It keeps coming up. You just try it. Why not, right? You just do it.
Absolutely. It's so important to me. It's so important to me when working with women to encourage them to see their inner beauty and that they deserve it. One of my favorite flower is the magnolia. I buy perfume that is magnolia, that smells like magnolias. I remember the
Love
first time I
magnolia.
ever smelled a magnolia, I thought that was the most gorgeous, beautiful essence of a fragrance, a scent in that flower. To the point where I even went to I picked some off a tree and went to a craft store. They got some kind of stuff that I thought that was going to make them look like ceramic, and I could keep the magnolia in the house right there with me. It didn't turn out like that, but get an A
You
for
tried
effort.
it. You tried.
But I tried. Like I said, get an A
Yes.
for effort. But I love the scent
Yeah.
of magnolia. So
Right.
beautiful. I want women to feel like they are a walking magnolia. I do. Or whatever favorite flower or scent or whatever displays beauty to them. I want them to have that on the inside. And I want them
Where
to be.
where does all this desire to have women, where does it come from? Where does it, it's just love and sunshine. Where does all that come from? How do you have that? Like, what is the source of that?
It comes from me because because
Mm,
I didn't have it. And I know what it feels like to not have it. I thank God
yeah.
I have it now and that God was kind enough to me to let me have it, Sarah. But I will never
Mm.
forget what it was like to not have it. I didn't want other women to stay trapped in that. I had lived through chronic abuse. My abuse didn't end when I left my mom's home. I got in relationships with men and they would beat me and tell me I was stupid and ridiculous and all kind of things. And then the responsibility of children that I couldn't afford to even take care of. And there's so many things, and the idea that I always wanted higher education. I wanted a keychain that I push and unlock my car door. I wanted all the things that I couldn't get. And I wanted to know I was beautiful beyond sexual exploitation.
Mhm.
When God got me to where I was and am now, I was my own magnolia. And that's what drove me to want to work with women, because to feel like that, like you're nothing. Society tells you you're nothing. Your mom had already told you you were nothing. Men tell you you are nothing. You see children that you can't give nothing to. You don't know how to love yourself. I didn't, because everything I looked at in me just looked like lack, having a lack of this, having a lack of that, you ain't nothing. But I was so much. And I was granted the blessing to be able to walk into that and know that and appreciate the fact that I have a genuine empathy from all that I did live through, to recognize how important it is to be of service to women and help them have the semi-luxury and the journaling and the picnics and the walks and the mazes and the labyrinths and all the things that my coaching crew do, because all of these things are in my coaching. Women, like I said, it's built in. You're going to get that semi-luxury. You're going to get that authenticity. We're going to have in-depth conversations, and you're going to work on that. And I'm not going to sell them a story that guaranteed at the end of our sessions that they're going to be 100% a magnolia. I'm not going to ever tell nobody that. But I bet you one thing, they'll have a heck of a blueprint.
That's right. That's right. I think they will too, based on what we've talked about. I do. I believe it. So I have a few more questions for you. I don't want to keep you for the rest of the day, although I think we could talk for hours upon hours. I love talking with you. So what's one small step a woman can take this week to reclaim her story?
Okay. If you will indulge me, I was hoping we got to something like this. I doggy marked this chapter in my book, and my chapters aren't big, but you just said, what can a woman do this week? So I'm going to read what I did on one particular week that did it, and it wasn't extravagant, but it was my first semi-luxury. And it says, it began with coffee. I started my path of self-kindness with a cup of coffee. That's right, a cup of coffee. I always admired the way the beautiful people seem to hang out at Starbucks. So one day, I just bit the bullet and went inside Starbucks and ordered a white chocolate mocha for $3.75. This was a gift I gave to myself. It cost about the same as a pack of chicken thighs back then, but this was for me. I drank the cup of coffee as if it was my last treat, something rich and perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime moment. The greatest feeling was that for the first time, I was sitting both with and amongst the beautiful people. In fact, I was one of them. While sitting in the coffee shop, I eavesdropped on various conversations taking place all around me. The conversations sounded so cultured, so sophisticated, and so accomplished. I saw men and women looking intently at each other, and I admired one lady's Burberry scarf. I mentally ran my fingers across their briefcases, their stylish blazers. I gazed at their somehow cheek overworn shoes, and I imagined myself standing in their shoes. I absorbed the hot, smoky steam of my coffee, taking notice of the smell and warmth of the heat rising from my paper coffee cup. I remember this day very well, Sarah. I gently whispered to myself, "Thank you." That small act of personal kindness began to change my opinion of myself in both new and exciting ways. On that day of delighting in my cup of good old coffee, and the unrestrained wonder of participating in the act of owning my inclusion in society, I began to taste self-importance, and the gratification that I had pushed my do-over button. Somehow, being inside that coffee shop with all those beautiful people and feeling beautiful myself awakened my doormat courage, and now I was becoming animated. And I'll stop there. You asked me what I could suggest or encourage a woman to do this week for herself. Like I mentioned in that chapter, that $3.75 back then, this is when I was raising my kids, that was a pack of chicken thighs. And what kept me from ever going in Starbucks and buying coffee was I didn't want to take food out of my kids' mouth. So I wouldn't give it to myself. Whatever it is that you would practically have to triple dog, dare yourself to do that. And I tell people, if you can't do that today, do the next best thing to it or for it. Because you don't know what that's really going to make you feel like to see yourself, put yourself first. I put myself over a pack of chicken thighs, okay? You don't know what you're going to feel like experiencing that. but you deserve it. It's uniquely you. It's uniquely something that you have in your heart and your mind that you would like to do. And you have whatever reasons that you don't do it. But roll up your sleeves. And again, know you're the only you that you got. You're irreplaceable. You can't replace yourself. And this is not a practice run. We don't get a do-over like that.
Yeah.
But right now we have time to do things over. So go and do whatever it is, even if it feels challenging, or even if you feel like I'm gonna be guilty about this, and let that be your step number one.
It's awesome. Give yourself permission and do it. I love it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to think about what my thing is, what impact it could have, like what thing. Thank you for that, Cosette. There's so much value in that. And I'm going to go ahead and just link everything, your website, your email, your book, your speaking engagement that you sent me initially. I'm going to go ahead and link that down here also. Yeah. It was so good. Yeah, it was so good. And I'm hoping we'll have you come speak for some of our women's groups in the next year. You might already be on the calendar for one. Yeah, but for more, we need you to come because you've got so much to share. You're just so incredible. So thank you for your time.
It's reclaimyourstories.com. It will launch on March 30th. That's my youngest daughter's birthday. I'm launching it on her birthday. And the website will be open then. But I
Wonderful. Well, happy birthday to her.
Yeah, she's going to be 31. I believe I sent you the actual website address.
Yes.
And the email to get to me when people want to start, reaching out to me. And it will launch on March 30th. And before we go, thank you so much for spending time with me today, and your audience. I want to thank them for spending time with me today. It's really been a blessing to talk to you. And thank you for taking me down my memory lane. Sometimes, yes, there is. There's so much work in the White House. I work for an elected official in his office. But the reason why I called it From Welfare to the White House is because when I was going to my first course at Brookings Institution think tank, I decided I wanted to go visit the White House. I wanted to go look at it, oh my God. And I had an incredible experience with a homeless woman there that really set the tone for my determination to finish my degree and use whatever gifts and talents I have, whether it be within the public sector, private sector, or what, to understand that this is what a lot of people are going through. And I ended up homeless myself for 2 years after having my degree. So it's From Welfare to the White House because I went from welfare to going to a very prestigious think tank in DC to sitting on the outside beyond the black wrought iron fence of the White House talking to a homeless woman who used to be a RN, registered nurse.
Wow.
And that was my experience at the White House. And I walked away from talking to her, getting back on my bus in DC, the city buses. And I even questioned myself, what am I going to do with this life? But my time on Capitol Hill was incredible. I don't usually say the names of the elected officials that I represented because I don't have no release signature or nothing like that. And I like to respect them. But I did serve in an incumbent's office who had been in office for over 40 years. And he taught me a lot.
Wow.
He taught me.
And I will link everything in the summary and I will send you an email follow-up soon. And thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you again.
Sounds
good. Thank you. Until next time, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.